spaghetti carbonara with prosciutto and bacon. So first what you're going to want to do, turn on the water, light the fire, and salt the water, because that adds flavor to your pasta. A generous handful of salt. You're going to want this to heat up to a rolling boil. Then what you're going to want to do is make sure you turn on your fire for your bacon. Get that pan heating up. So, we use prosciutto and bacon because it adds different textures and flavors. And with bacon, you can even use the fat to cook the prosciutto, because prosciutto fries up really quickly. Carbonara, traditionally made with either pancetta or guanciale, which is basically an Italian pork product, kind of like bacon. All onto the board. Make sure you oil your pan too, just a little bit, because you don't want the bacon sticking to the pan and ruining your pan. Grab the longest tongs you have, because if you don't, you may burn your hand from all the grease. I like this dish because it's a complexity of flavors, such as black pepper, the bacon, which is salty and rich and fatty, and since when you add the egg and the Parmesan, it creates a creamy, velvety sauce. Good amount of bacon. If you need to do it in small batches, that's okay, but you need to make sure they're frying. And don't burn yourself, because that's the problem with frying bacon, because there's a lot of grease. Make sure it's not sticking to the pan either, because that's how you ruin your pan. You're turning it down a little. Low and slow. You don't want to get it to burn or cook unevenly, because that can be bad. So you're going to add your bacon to your done with slab, and one by one. Garbage nearby. Make sure you clean your hands in intervals, because if you don't, you'll have raw bacon on your hands, and that's not good either. You need to make sure you keep the bacon inside the pan, because if you don't, the grease will splatter out and getting on stovetop or cookware, that can be not good and potentially harmful. So while this is cooking, you might want to start grating the Parmesan. So you're going to want to get your Parmesan. If you grate a little bit too much, that's fine. You can use it later to add to the dish. So you're going to want to get about 2/3 cup or even more. I suggest doing more, because then you're going to have more to add. Don't grate the rind, because that's not the cheesy part of the Parmesan. But good tip, if you're going to use the rind, use it to enhance flavors in soups. because my mom, I've always loved to cook and I've had a very advanced palate since I was little. And cooking, I've had very severe peanut and tree nut allergies, which has caused me not to be able to go to cooking classes, and really was a setback until my mom geniusly came up with the idea of creating a cooking class of our own that doesn't use peanuts or tree nuts or a bunch of other allergens that could be that could hurt other kids. So if you love to cook and you had allergies, that was the place to go. I think we did that in 2009 was when we started it, when I was about 4 or 5. Yeah. So we want a really great, a good amount of cheese. Two-thirds cup. You have to fill that entire thing and pack it down. Got my cheese. Okay, you're gonna stop this. Then if you're not done, go check on your bacon. Make sure it's not burnt. It's good to even though it's super greasy, it's good to add a little oil before you cook, because if you don't, then it'll stick and ruin your pans, and you'll get less bacon. So we're going to let that cook a little longer until they're nice and crispy, and then we'll add in our second batch. Some hobbies I like to do, other than cooking, which I love cooking, I like to act, sing, and I am a lacrosse goalie, which my mom says makes me a little crazy. Because I willingly have hard, almost bullet-like balls being thrown at me. Another great cooking mentor in my life is my grandpa. Ever since I was little, whenever we would go over to his house, he was either making pot roast or homemade pizza. And over the last summer, he's taught me how to make homemade pizza, donuts, and soon he's going to be teaching me how to make French bread. Just have to reserve a date. He's a very influential figure in my life. Of course, I know how to make a bunch of types of foods like American, Italian, and I really enjoy Mexican food. But I'm half Italian. We say I'm half Italian, but I'm really a lot of things. But I like to say I'm half Italian, and I'm pretty much half Filipino, which is an archipelago of islands in Asia. So I know how to make rice, and my dad has taught me all about how to use soy sauce and stuff, and how to make sure you know how much you're using, because a little can go a long way. You're going to want to fill up your cup. I say that is about 2/3 cup of cheese, which is the amount needed. And if you have a little left, it's always great for seasoning, or just to have already grated when you need it. This is about 2/3 cup packed of Parmesan. We're going to put this in our bowl and save until we're ready for later. Okay. Now, our bacon is almost done. My mom was making sure I didn't burn it while I was doing the Parmesan. Thank you, Mom. We're gonna lift the bacon, and always have a plate with paper towels ready. This is coming up to a small boil, but not what we need yet. You're gonna want to make sure it's on high, but make sure it's not too high to the fact that it could overflow or burn you, which is also, again, bad. You have to be very careful when cooking, because a lot of people say cooking's easy. It's not. It's very difficult, and you have to know all the safety precautions. Paper towels, it drains out most of the extra fat and grease that's on your bacon. That's just gonna make it, more like, it's not gonna be all fatty and like gross and stuff. Because if you let it like sit too long and it has all that fat on it, it's gonna just like, all this is gonna become like a goo that sits on top, and it's gonna just be a fat, gross, like nasty little slime on it. You don't want to make sure you don't burn yourself. I also like this dish because it shows how complex and hard it is just to make a pasta dish. Because if you don't temper your eggs and mix them well enough, they'll become just scrambled eggs and bacon, which tastes good, but you really want a velvety, creamy sauce instead of straight egg, which is, I'm not a big fan of just eggs, so that's why I think you have to really put some elbow grease into it. The history of carbonara was created in Rome after World War II when troops were giving out rations to the peasants in Rome of bacon and eggs. What they had on hand wasn't a lot, and that meant that they can use most easily cheaper meats like bacon or guanciale, or just stuff not as like premium, but still come out with a great simple dish that they could do easily for their families. A big part of this dish also, black pepper. You have to have the perfect amount of black pepper so it really comes through, and it also mellows out the flavors of bacon and the cheese and egg, which can sometimes be overpowering. So what you're going to want to do, see these pieces like that, where it's fully cooked, you're going to put them on your paper towel when it's done. This one, it's a little more fatty, which means that you should probably try to cook it a little longer. This one I'm just going to leave on for another minute. It's very like flimsy right now, but after you dry them, they'll become very crunchy and great to add for texture and flavor in your pasta dish. So we'll put on the next round of bacon after we sit down another pan. When there's nothing on the stove, make sure to turn down the heat or else it'll bubble up and splatter. We have about 3 pieces left. You're gonna wanna put these on with care. If they're on the side a little bit, it's okay because then you can just move them. But put these on with care because if you don't, you'll splatter everything and get hurt. Wash your hands, soap, make sure you know. At first, you're going to want to move them around a little so they don't stick to it, like I said before. Straight so you don't put them unevenly. Okay, so while this is cooking, you're going to want to pat this down a little. Make sure you're getting all the grease off that bacon. And what we like to do, using prosciutto and bacon, so we can take two different types of meat, but still in the same family of meat, and create different textures and flavors.